The glow from his monitors cast long shadows across the small apartment, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air around piles of empty energy drink cans and discarded pizza boxes. Jesse leaned into his microphone, his voice animated as the chat feed on his second screen scrolled into a blur of laughing emojis. He explained to his followers that he had been completely hooked on a new fantasy series, binging several episodes in one sitting. He couldn't understand the appeal of the show's grim, brooding protagonist when there was a secondary character so much more compelling, so classically heroic. He wondered aloud what the female lead could possibly see in the show's edgy bad boy hero. Was it the perpetually furrowed brow, he mused, or the ridiculously sharp jawline? The chat exploded. He'd never had such an active audience this early in a stream. He was supposed to be waiting for his usual gaming partners to log on before starting their ranked matches, but he'd gotten carried away ranting to his viewers. The feed was a waterfall of text when he finally saw the familiar default avatar light up in his lobby. He'd made a long-standing promise to his fans for a special holiday stream. Since it was the morning of Thanksgiving, he'd moved the broadcast up from its usual late-night slot to give everyone time for family dinners. His own crew, a bunch of inveterate night owls, had struggled to make the morning session. Seeing someone finally online, he sent the invitation without a second thought. A follower's question popped up, asking how much of the series he'd seen. He admitted he'd finished it, but he kept skipping back to rewatch all the scenes with the heroic older brother character. The fact that they were step-siblings in the show didn't diminish the appeal for him at all. After all, he joked, since they didn't share any blood, what was the harm in a little on-screen chemistry? He was rambling, completely oblivious to the fact that the person he'd just invited could hear every word broadcast from his microphone. A calm, resonant voice cut through his headset, startling him so badly that the bottle of water in his hand trembled. The voice asked him which stepbrother exactly had captured his imagination this time. The chat feed immediately shifted, recognizing the voice. Comments flooded in, noting the uncanny resemblance to the actor Caleb Stone. It had to be him. Couldn't be. Jesse felt a cold sweat prickle his skin. He glanced at the avatar, generic yet somehow achingly familiar now. He told himself it was impossible for a top-tier celebrity to drop into his small-time stream. Before he could process the thought or kick the user, the voice spoke again, addressing him by name. He asked Jesse with unnerving clarity which brother had caught his eye. Wasn't it him? The confirmation sent the stream into a frenzy. It really was Caleb Stone. The secret he'd guarded for years was unraveling live in front of hundreds of strangers. In a panic, Jesse slammed the button to end the stream, the screen going black. All that work building his channel, gone in a moment of carelessness. Within the hour, his and Caleb's names were trending on Twitter. Hashtags like Caleb Stone crashes stream and My Stepbrother's Keeper were everywhere. The carefully constructed wall between his life and Caleb's had crumbled. Furious, he dialed the friend he was supposed to be gaming with. He demanded to know what happened to their morning plans. Had his friend not been using a different avatar every week, he never would have made the mistake of inviting Caleb. His friend was apologetic, explaining that his girlfriend had roped him into some last-minute volunteer work at a soup kitchen. It was all because of that same fantasy show which had apparently inspired a new wave of holiday charity. Jesse hung up, feeling the universe had conspired against him. Good fortune always seemed to pass him by, but bad luck found him without fail. When he arrived home that evening, the scent of roast turkey and spices hung in the air. He hesitated at the door of his mother's suburban house. He'd scheduled the morning stream specifically so he could make it home for Thanksgiving dinner, a tradition he hadn't participated in for nearly a year. As for Caleb, he probably hadn't been back in 3. Jesse wondered if he even remembered the way. Just then, footsteps echoed in the hallway, and a tall, polished figure emerged from the stairwell. Caleb looked different, more put together than Jesse remembered, carrying several shopping bags from expensive-looking boutiques. In contrast, Jesse had shown up empty-handed. The front door opened before they could speak, and his mother's face appeared. her expression a mixture of surprise and delight. She welcomed them in, chiding them for lingering in the hallway. Caleb flashed a charming smile, telling his aunt that her hearing was as sharp as ever, as they'd only just arrived. His mother, Sarah, beamed, pulling them both inside. She fussed over the gifts Caleb had brought, recognizing a designer brand she'd only seen in magazines and protesting that they must have been too expensive. Caleb smoothly replied that the price was irrelevant as long as she liked them, a remark that made her smile widen. Jesse sometimes thought someone as effortlessly gracious as Caleb was a better fit for a son to his mother than he was. A man emerged from the kitchen carrying a platter of mashed potatoes. Jesse met his stepfather's eyes and managed a tight smile, telling his uncle that he was back. The four of them gathered around the dining table, the atmosphere thick with the unspoken history of a family that hadn't been whole for a long time. Jesse watched his mother and Caleb's father, Frank, sitting opposite each other. They didn't speak much, but the fond smiles they exchanged spoke volumes. Sarah urged Caleb to eat more, noting he'd barely touched his plate. He explained that he was starting a new film role in a few days and had to maintain a strict diet. His mother lamented the difficulties of show business before turning her attention to Jesse, nagging him about his gaming habits and reliance on takeout, which she insisted was unhealthy. Jesse retorted that his own cooking was probably even more of a health hazard, earning a low chuckle from Caleb beside him. The comment brought back a vivid memory of a culinary disaster that had landed Caleb in the hospital. The conversation eventually turned to their love lives. Sarah asked Caleb if he was dating, suggesting he must meet countless beautiful actresses. He deflected, stating that they were just colleagues and that he kept things professional. Then his eyes flickered toward Jesse. He casually asked if Jesse was seeing anyone. His mother answered for him, complaining that he was a recluse who never left the house and probably didn't even know what the trees in his own neighborhood looked like. Caleb's smile grew, a knowing glint in his eye. He remarked that he thought Jesse had his eye on someone special. Jesse knew exactly what Caleb was referring to. It was a clear jab about the morning's live stream. He shot a look at Caleb, who seemed to be enjoying himself. His mother continued, oblivious, saying that Jesse only ever hung out with his male friends. A man. Caleb's gaze lingered on him for a moment too long, and Jesse kicked him sharply under the table. His mother was a simple woman whose main hobby was watching evening soap operas. She wouldn't understand the complexities of their situation. More importantly, Jesse never wanted his parents to know what had happened between them. After dinner, Caleb volunteered to do the dishes. While his mother tidied up, she asked them both to stay for a few more days. Caleb politely declined, citing preparations for his movie. Frank then quietly approached Jesse, asking if he might consider staying. Jesse had never been particularly close to his stepfather. When his mother had remarried, Jesse was already in high school, and Frank had been a distant figure, always at work at his auto body shop. But he was consistently kind to Sarah, and that was all that mattered to Jesse. He made an excuse about his streaming hours being short for the month and needing to catch up. Frank nodded in understanding and went to join Sarah. Later that night, as Jesse was about to go to his room, Caleb gave him a strange, unreadable look that filled him with a sense of foreboding. An hour later, his phone buzzed with a message. It was Caleb, telling him to open his door because they needed to talk. He added that he knew Jesse was awake. Jesse was, in fact, wide awake. Years of late-night streaming had ruined his ability to sleep early. He opened the door with a scowl, and Caleb walked in without invitation, immediately making the small room feel cramped. The house, originally a two-bedroom, had been converted into a three-bedroom by Frank shortly after the marriage, a gesture meant to give the two boys their own space. Now, as grown men, that space felt claustrophobically small. Caleb sat in the desk chair and got straight to the point, asking again which brother he'd been fawning over. Jesse told him to drop it, but Caleb persisted, saying he needed to know. It was just a stupid joke for the stream, Jesse insisted, but Caleb wouldn't let it go. He wondered if Jesse liked this fictional character more than he had once liked him. Jesse cut him off, denying he had ever liked him back then. A tense silence fell between them before Caleb changed the subject, asking about a blind date his mother had set up for him a while back. Jesse bristled, asking why he was so interested in his personal life. The memory was mortifying. His mother had ambushed him, introducing him to the daughter of a woman from her line dancing class. The girl had immediately asked if he was okay with her being a fan of a certain celebrity. Before he could grasp the situation, she was showing him her phone, a gallery filled with pictures of Caleb Stone. For the next 30 minutes, she extolled Caleb's virtues, reciting facts she'd memorized from fan sites. His birthday was September 16th. He was 6'1". His favorite food was mushrooms. With each fact, Jesse had silently refuted her. Caleb's birthday changed every year with the lunar calendar. He was 6'2" in college, and he swore off mushrooms forever after Jesse's cooking sent him to the emergency room. It was all a lie, a carefully constructed persona for public consumption. He even pretended not to be good at video games. Jesse had finally snapped, telling the girl that Caleb was actually a monster at first-person shooters, capable of taking on entire teams by himself. The girl's eyes had welled with tears, accusing him of bad-mouthing someone he didn't even know before storming out. Jesse told Caleb to mind his own business and that he hadn't even gotten revenge for the stream incident yet. Caleb apologized, claiming he hadn't known Jesse was live. Jesse scoffed, asking if he thought he was talking to the air. If an apology was enough, he said, then Caleb should make it a practical one and send him some money. With that, he pushed Caleb out of the room and shut the door, hearing a muffled voice from the other side promise to make it up to him. The next morning, Caleb was gone, his bed neatly made. Back in his own apartment, Jesse started his stream early that evening. The chat was flooded with questions about Caleb. Jesse stuck to his story, insisting it was all a misunderstanding and the voice was just a coincidence. Some viewers called him out for clickbait, while others lost interest and left. Halfway through, just as the atmosphere was returning to normal, a massive virtual gift, a supernova, exploded across the screen. Then another and another. The donor's ID was simple J. A first-level account, but the gifts kept coming, dozens of them in a matter of seconds. The sheer value was staggering. Jesse, flustered, asked if the user was an adult, terrified of having to issue a refund. A message from J. Finally appeared in the chat, confirmed he was an adult and asked if the streamer would say okay. The supernovas resumed their barrage. Jesse numbly thanked the donor. Then a cold realization hit him. G was his childhood nickname, one only Caleb had ever used. He remembered asking Caleb once why he'd used it for his gaming account. Caleb had just smiled without answering. After the 40th gift, the user vanished. His network manager was blowing up his phone, telling him to secure the wealthy fan. But Jesse felt nothing but a hollow dread. He texted Caleb after the stream. The reply was instant. It was me. Jesse asked him why, but received no answer. He had never understood Caleb, not his decision to abandon a promising pro-gaming career for acting, nor the false identity he had constructed for himself. The incident kept Jesse's viewership high for weeks, with people tuning in hoping to see the mystery benefactor again. Eventually, a gossip website broke the story. An internet sleuth had analyzed a reflection in a photo Caleb posted online, identified the streaming app on his phone, and connected the dots to the J. account and the Thanksgiving stream. The dots were connected and the story went viral. The narrative shifted online. Fans started digging up old clips, including the one where Jesse joked about non-blood-related brothers. The comments became strange. People pointed out how handsome both brothers were and that, since they weren't related by blood, a relationship was fair game. They were being shipped hard. People claimed Caleb's interruption was an act of jealousy and that Jesse's comments were a hint. Jesse was so overwhelmed he couldn't bring himself to go live. His network manager urged him to capitalize on the hype, insisting it was harmless since they were brothers. But that was the problem. They weren't just brothers. They had a past. They had first met in a booth at a classic American diner. His mother, shy and blushing, had been dressing up for hours to meet her new boyfriend, Frank. Jesse had just wanted to get it over with. Frank was a quiet, honest-looking mechanic, and next to him sat his son, Caleb, looking clean-cut and studious in his private school uniform. Jesse had forced out a greeting to his new uncle and brother. Caleb had just nodded. Their second meeting was in a back alley behind a 7-Eleven. Jesse stumbled upon Caleb being cornered by 3 other boys. For Frank's sake, Jesse had grabbed a discarded hockey stick and joined the fray. He was surprised to find that Caleb, the straight-A student, could throw a mean punch. Afterward, nursing a split lip, Jesse bought him an ice-cold soda from the convenience store to press against the swelling. They stood in silence for a moment, 2 boys from single-parent homes who understood the unspoken rule of hiding your wounds to avoid worrying your parents. After his mother's wedding, Jesse moved into Frank's house. He started studying harder with Caleb, a top student, as his reluctant tutor. Their relationship began to change during those long, hot summer afternoons, crammed into a small room with only a whirring box fan for relief. Jesse had chalked it up to brotherly bonding until the day he caught a glimpse of Caleb's laptop screen. A tender scene between 2 men playing out from an art house film. Caleb had looked at him, his expression unreadable, and confessed that he was gay. They drifted apart after that, the space between them filled with a new, cautious tension. Things came to a head over winter break. With their parents visiting relatives, they were home alone. Jesse, attempting to cook pasta, accidentally used spoiled mushrooms and gave Caleb a severe case of food poisoning. The morning after they left the urgent care clinic, they were jumped by some of Jesse's old rivals from middle school. In the fight that followed, one of the guys swung an iron pipe, and Caleb stepped in front of Jesse, taking the blow. He ended up back in the hospital less than 24 hours after leaving it. While Jesse was cleaning his wounds, Caleb had looked at him, his voice low and pained, and asked if he did it because he thought Jesse liked him. The question hung in the air, and in that moment, a wire snapped in Jesse's brain. He knew he was finished. He didn't deny it. Instead, he let the ambiguity fester, and their relationship grew closer, more complicated. Their parents just thought they were finally bonding as brothers. But both of them knew it was something far more dangerous. The most intense it ever became was one afternoon, when Caleb was supposed to be helping him with a math problem. And their hands found each other under the table, fingers intertwining while the equations on the page blurred into meaninglessness.